guys! Today we'll be covering the manhwa, She's a Villainess, but her husband is handsome. If you enjoy the video, please remember to like and subscribe so we can bring you more recap content. Our story starts at a very steamy scene. Right out the gate, we find ourselves in a fancy bedroom where Ramane, our female protagonist, is struggling to fend off her super gorgeous and handsome husband, Cedric. And if you're already wondering why she's even trying to resist such a gorgeous man in the first place, don't worry, we'll get to that. But what you should know for now is that Cedric isn't normally like this. In fact, they're not particularly close. But when she heard he had a fever, Ramane ran to his room to check if he was okay. Just one look at his wife and Cedric forgot all about the fever. Now he's even blaming her for getting him all riled up. She didn't even do anything. Feeling awkward, she tries to push him away, but he grabs her hand and kisses it, admitting he was wrong. He's never appreciated her like he should have done, but now he suddenly confesses that he's crazy for her. Whether he's crazy for her or just plain crazy is hard to tell, but one thing's for certain, this is not how Ramane expected things to go. You see, Ramane wasn't actually born into this world. She came from ours, where she was a small-town doctor with a kind heart, but not a lot of cash. When her gambling drunkard of a father passed away, she was left in a huge amount of debt. And as if that wasn't bad enough, the hospital she worked for closed, and the new one she joined was run by corrupt doctors who only cared about money. Jeez, talk about rotten luck. She stormed out of the doctor's office, only to get hit by a manhwa character's greatest enemy, a bus. Her last thought was that in her next life, she wouldn't live for other people, but for herself. And the next thing she knew, she woke up in a luxurious bedroom with a maid by her side in the body of Ramane Roger, the villainess from her favorite romance novel. The main plot is between the leads Elena and Killian. Cedric, Ramane's husband, who we met earlier, is Killian's younger brother. In the original, Cedric is obsessed with Elena, which slowly turns Ramane mad with jealousy. She even drank poison to get his attention, but when they found out she did it on purpose, she was divorced and exiled from the family. It's a pretty tragic fate, and unfortunately for Ramane, it's already in full swing. The moment she woke up is only a few hours after she drank the poison. Would somebody give this girl a break already? If I was her, I'd probably just give up and drink the rest of the poison. Maybe third time's the charm, right? But our protagonist isn't ready to give in just yet. She remembers from the original that this maid's name is Jane, and she's absolutely devoted to Ramane. Maybe if she plays this right, they can cover up this whole poison scandal together. Even if things do differ from the original, she's not exactly landed the best role. No one wants a husband who's obsessed with another woman. While Ramane is dressed by her maids, Jane tells her that Cedric is on his way to see her. He's already heard the news that she fainted from poison, so it's anyone's guess as to what will happen next. She's prepared for just about anything, other than seeing his face in reality. He's way more handsome than the book described him. She's so shocked that just the sight of him gives her a nosebleed. Yikes, for a villainess, she's not got much of a poker face, huh? She hurriedly wipes the blood away while Cedric remarks that she must not have fully recovered yet. To her shock, he starts saying how upset he was when he heard the news that she had fainted. He lived in agony every day, unable to even put into words how worried he was. Say what now? A little taken aback, Ramane tries to remember what kind of relationship she and Cedric had in the original before the whole poison scandal. She recalls a particular scene where he told his wife that he could never love her, but swore to protect their image by putting on a good show for everyone who saw them. But this is, well, it's a few steps above your usual performance. He literally looks like he's about to cry. It's awkward to watch, but if she doesn't want to be kicked out of this house, she has to play along. Jane is already pretty convinced by his acting skills, so she asks her maid to step outside for a moment to give them some privacy. The moment the maids are gone, Cedric turns cold again. Wow, get this man an Oscar! Is it just me, or did anyone else think he was being serious for a moment back there? Ramane decides to cut straight to the point and ask him for a divorce. Of course, it's not that simple to just cut things off between them. They were ordered to marry by the king himself, and Cedric swore an oath. He's not the kind of man to take that lightly. Ramane doesn't quite remember these details from the story. Maybe they weren't discussed in the book, but she asks her husband to tell the king that she wants to break up, but Cedric kind of just sighs and promises to explain the issue further at breakfast tomorrow. She wakes up the next morning in a foul mood. She remembered the background from the original novel, which takes place in the Martin Kingdom. But Romane's family were actually from their sworn enemy nation, the Lotor Kingdom. In a war between the two countries, Romane's father, Earl Calypse, betrayed his own nation and helped the Martin Kingdom to victory. Earl Calypse was given the position of Duke in the Martin Kingdom, but he was still not trusted by many of the nobles. So in order to improve his reputation and quiet any grumblings, they married his daughter Romane to Cedric Roger. Her family history laid the whole foundation for her marriage. That's why Cedric has never trusted her, because she's literally the daughter of a traitor. I mean, can you blame him? But something is clearly different from the original plot. I mean, he didn't kick her out without any hesitation, so maybe there's some hope for her yet. And if she keeps dressing like the prettiest princess in the land, maybe he'll see reason to be a bit more understanding. At breakfast the next morning, Cedric is back with his devoted husband act, so Romane does her best to follow along. But their jovial atmosphere is shattered when one of the butlers collapses and starts foaming at the mouth. The maids hurry to move him out of the lord and lady's side, but Romane's instinct kicks in. He's showing all the symptoms of a stroke, so she rushes over to conduct a closer examination. She is a doctor after all. She can't just ignore a patient in need of help. She struggles to lift the butler and get him on his side so he doesn't choke. She orders the maids and butlers to clear any potentially dangerous items from the scene and stays by his side even when she accidentally gets hit in the head by the unconscious man. The servants are all worried about her dress getting dirty, but Romane doesn't care. Of course, she is a noblewoman, but how could one dress be worth more than a human life? She insists that no one make a fuss and heads to her room to get cleaned up since the butler seems stable now. On her way out, she catches Cedric's eye, shocked to see his calm and poised expression. A man literally just had a stroke in front of them and he didn't even bat an eye. Who's the real villain here? Romane excuses herself, apologizing for her absence. After a quick outfit change and a new hairstyle, which is even more stunning than the last, Jane brings her breakfast in her room. The servants are really surprised at her reaction this morning, particularly since she was poisoned only yesterday. But our girl has handled far worse than this in her years as an ER doctor. She's one tough cookie to crack. In the middle of her meal, the butler who had a stroke, Rodell, asks for permission to see her. Wait, how is he okay already? Of course, she agrees, but when he arrives, he immediately falls to his knees and begs for her forgiveness. Oh, here we go again. He admits that this kind of thing happened once before when he broke Elena's favorite teacup. He even calls it a curse and can't understand what he did to deserve it. Of course, in a world like this with little medical knowledge, he couldn't understand the nature of his condition, but Romane can. She tells him to sit up and says he did nothing wrong. On a piece of paper, she gives him a list of ingredients to eat and orders him to get at least 8 hours of sleep a day. I'm not exactly sure how a change of diet is going to help a seizure patient, but Romane seems confident that some basic lifestyle changes can make things easier for him. The biggest thing is getting him out of the kitchen, so she visits her husband again to ask for Rodell to be given a new position. Ideally in the laundry room or library, where there aren't so many sharp and dangerous things for him to avoid. Cedric openly admits that he didn't think she cared about any of their workers. It makes her angry, but honestly, he's probably not wrong. The old Romane wouldn't have said any of this stuff. To calm herself down, Romane looks away from his face and ends up staring instead at his chest. Abort, girl! Mission abort! How the heck is anyone supposed to concentrate if they're staring at such gorgeous pecs? Half angry and half aroused, she yells at Cedric that if there's someone she can save, she will always step in to save them. She even says he wouldn't understand something like that. Girl, neither would you. You're not a doctor anymore, remember? Stop blowing your cover. Fortunately, he doesn't question her any further and just agrees to move Rodell to a new department. Romane leaves, a little flustered, while her husband asks his right-hand man, Roberto, how many people know about the poisoning. So far, it's a few staff, some council members, and Elena and Killian. To Roberto's shock, Cedric decides to drop the matter completely and gives him the responsibility of making sure no one else finds out. No pressure or anything. Trying to contain his surprise, Roberto leaves his master to ponder this sudden change in his wife's personality. Has she always been this way and he just misunderstood her? Or is she secretly planning something? One thing's for sure, he'll be paying a lot more attention to her from now on. Romane gets back to her room feeling frustrated with herself. Of course a man like Cedric is going to get suspicious if she suddenly does a total 180, but she decides not to dwell on the past. What's important right now is preparing for her future. Thinking about her life post-divorce, she's looking through her closet when she spots a secret door that looks a bit like a safe. It's just big enough for her to crawl inside, and when she does, she finds a huge space, a bit like a personal library. A little concerned, she opens one of the books to find a series of medical journals with notes about herbs for healing, herbs for poisoning, and even inspection of patients with tumors. No way! Was Romane also interested in medicine? Maybe their personalities line up more than we thought. She also finds a drawing of a young girl with short hair dedicated to my beloved Lily. Now, what the heck is that all about? Before she can read any more, she hears Jane knocking at her bedroom door and rushes back through the wardrobe. As if she didn't already have enough to deal with, now her father is on the way to the mansion. Jane helps her with her third outfit change of the day and brushes her hair back out. From the novel, she remembers that Duke Calypso is very affectionate towards his daughter, so she's looking forward to meeting him. Maybe she finally has someone in her corner who can help with the divorce. He's certainly very smiley when he arrives, gushing over her and saying how excited he was to see her. But as soon as the butler leaves, he turns even colder than Cedric. Clearly, he's heard about her relationship going sour, and he is not happy. Is acting a mandatory skill in this kingdom? Seriously, why is everyone so good at pretending? Not only is he mean, but he's hella creepy too, holding her chin and telling her she should at least maintain her reputation. He orders her to answer, but Romane is so stunned she can't even speak. He raises his hand, and that's when it hits her. Romane had just the same childhood that she did. Just the same abusive, cruel father who beat his daughter. She refuses to go through this a second time, but luckily the door opens before he can land the hit. It's Cedric. It's not clear if we can tell what was about to happen, but the Duke covers up impressively well, reaching to touch his daughter's cheek instead and turning lovey-dovey once more. This guy seriously gives me the creeps. No wonder Romane ended up becoming a villain. Cedric and the Duke greet each other, each pretending to be casual and friendly. Cedric denies any rumor that his marriage with Romane is under strain, and with a perfectly charming smile, he asks the Duke to give them some warning the next time he visits, so he can better prepare. Calypso assures him that he just wanted some quality time with his daughter, so Cedric starts to leave. No! How can he leave her alone? Did he not see what he was about to just do now? Romane is desperate not to be alone with this man again, but she can't think of a way to stop him. Just as she reaches the door, she calls out, "Darling," making her husband break out in a cold sweat. While he's shell-shocked, she suggests they all have tea together since it's been some time since her father last visited. I'm not sure if he gets the message or maybe he's just still in shock, but he agrees to stay so long as the Duke doesn't mind. Which he doesn't, but he was planning to head out anyway. I guess knowing that Cedric would be around, he got spooked. What a coward. Romane does her best at acting like the besotted daughter who already misses her father. They warmly bid the Duke goodbye, though he shoots her a dark look before leaving for good. She is just wondering why Romane's past was never mentioned in the original novel when her husband steps alarmingly close to her. They finally sit down to have a proper conversation about their divorce. Having heard from the Duke, it's even harder to consider separating when rumors are spreading about the state of their marriage. The fact that he came right away means they must be pretty bad already. Add to the fact that it's the king's order, and it's bad enough, but apparently there's more. It turns out Cedric was promised that he could inherit his father's dukedom so long as he married Romane. Wow, so literally everyone is benefiting from this situation except her? It's so unfair! Somehow, she keeps her cool while her husband tells her he won't accept the divorce. Instead, they need to fix their relationship, just enough that the both of them can stand it. He's realized now that she was acting so ridiculous all this time because she secretly wanted to be kicked out. If that's true, it's news to her, but maybe it makes sense. I'm really starting to think Romane is the most misunderstood character here. But now, she knows she can't stand on her own 2 feet without him. She certainly can't rely on her dad anyway, so she agrees to stay in this marriage until Cedric is officially given the position of Duke Roger. To her surprise, he also promises to be a better husband. Romane doesn't care about that so much as she cares about her own survival, so she also makes him promise to give her 1 million gold as compensation when they part ways. She forces him to write a contract, which includes all these conditions as well as acting their best to look like a happy couple in public. Satisfied, Romane turns to her room, wondering how much she can buy with 1 million gold. She gets a little paper cut from the contract, but when she arrives, Jane isn't there to help bandage it. Instead, there's a mysterious bunch of purple flowers on her table. Jane returns soon after, giving Romane enough time to hide the contract. The flowers came from Rodell, apparently, thanking her for the incident that morning. Has it really only been 1 day? How is she not exhausted by now? The flowers are a nice touch and remind her of her past life where poor patients would give her a bouquet as a thank you for her service. It's sweet, but personally, I would have preferred the payment. She sends Jane out to get some rest, surprised to find that when she looks down, her finger has stopped bleeding. What's that all about? That night, Cedric steps out into the grounds to meet with a hella suspicious figure named Sylvia, who has clearly been doing some work for him. Sylvia has also been spying on his wife, which is kinda gross. If he wants to know what she's up to, why doesn't he just go and ask? It doesn't matter anyway, since she's just been reading all evening. Still, he can't help but be suspicious. Can't figure out what she's planning. 1 week later, Romane is having tea in the garden like a classic noblewoman. But yes, just like you've always suspected, is boring as heck. She's had no social events for a week since they're repairing the bridge into the estate. Luckily, it's finished today, just in time for the return of the Duke and Duchess, the original heroine and hero of this story. It makes her a little nervous to imagine meeting them. If Cedric has such a bad impression of her as a husband, I can only imagine how badly Elena and Killian must think of her. In the book, Elena always tried to be her friend, but Killian didn't really like her. If she can get Elena on her side, maybe that will make her life here easier. Of course, we still don't really know much about her character, and the novel hasn't exactly been a reliable source so far. Think of how Duke Calypso turned out. On her way back inside, she runs into an aged gardener with a skin condition and becomes determined to find a way to help him. That's our Romane. Her heart is too big for her own good. While Romane has been bored out of her mind the last week, her husband has been staying true to his promise and paying her a lot more attention. Mainly, he's been using the servants to spy on her, but he also intends to keep up appearances in public. When his brother and Elena return, he wants to welcome them together with Romane. Putting on an outfit that is straight out of The Greatest Showman, he heads straight to her room. They haven't been able to see each other much since his training with the knights has kept him busy. The door is ajar when he arrives, so he peeks in and finds her sitting on the floor with a pile of umbrellas. Girl, what? What could she possibly have been using all those for? She awkwardly calls him darling again and clearly didn't realize it was time to go already. Jane rushes in and scolds her for making a mess, asking Cedric to wait outside while they get her a little more presentable. Jeez, those two really need to work on their chemistry if they're going to fool anyone. A few minutes later, Romane has rejoined them in the hallway in a matching scarlet outfit. She tries to explain the earlier incident, saying she couldn't decide on one that she liked. Maybe she really is just that picky, but Cedric knows better than to be so easily fooled. Earlier in their relationship, before the poisoning, they met to discuss a rumor that surfaced, one that claimed she was dating someone else. Being his usual cold and unemotional self, Cedric didn't care if she wasn't loyal to him, but he did ask her to at least uphold the dignity of his family by not making it so obvious. Like any girl would, Romane took offense to that and pointed out that he doesn't treat her like a lady of the house, so why should she act like one? She also tried to get more money out of him, saying she spent all her allowance on dresses. Which isn't very believable. She'd have to have bought a whole dress shop in 1 week. She also made a big deal about Elena and encouraged her husband to find a way to get rid of her. Back then, it seemed like she really wanted him to kick her out. But after she woke up from the poison, everything changed. Now she's calling him darling and playing with umbrellas on her bedroom floor. Who is this woman? He subtly tells her that he'll keep her poisoning a secret, while Romane jokes that he should really be more concerned about who did it, as if they both don't know she herself is the culprit. Is this flirting? Are these two finally finding some chemistry? I sure hope so, because it's time to put on their best performance yet in front of Duke and Duchess Roger. He greets his parents first, and right behind them are the true protagonists, Elena and Killian. She is all smiles and warmth with him. Meanwhile, there's a bit of tension between the brothers, which only makes sense. If two brothers fall in love with the same girl, things are bound to get awkward. As soon as Elena is on the scene, Cedric seems to forget all about the wife he said he'd devote himself to. She's like the world's most obvious fourth wheel. Then the Duchess turns the conversation to ask about her collapse, and Cedric assures her it was nothing serious. Elena in particular seems concerned, which is Cedric's cue to start acting like a loved-up husband again. The real protagonist seems intrigued by their closeness and suggests all four of them have some tea and catch up. Looks like it's time to really turn up the affection. The Duke and Duchess head inside to rest, and just a few short minutes later, Romane and Cedric somehow end up on top of each other. How the heck did that happen? Just a few minutes earlier, Elena had suggested that Ramane didn't have to join them for tea if she didn't want to. Which is kind of a sneaky move, if you ask me. She just wants both the brothers for herself. Surprisingly, Cedric stands up for Ramane and says she's more than well enough to attend. Which is true, but no one wants to sit there in silence while three good friends catch up and ignore you. So she excuses herself to head inside. Just as she's turning, her shoe catches on the inside of her dress. Instinctively, she reaches out and grabs a fistful of Cedric's shirt, pulling him to the ground with her. Now, how she ended up on top of him and not the other way around is another matter entirely. You certainly won't hear me complaining. Ramane awkwardly gets off him, but Cedric sees an opportunity. Instead of brushing her off, he acts like she's still weak from the poison and ditches his brother and true love to take care of her. Okay, you have to give him credit. That's pretty smooth. On their walk back, Ramane insists it really was an accident and tells him to go back if he wants to. But he can't. They signed a contract, remember? I guess he's not exactly happy to be leaving Elena with his brother, but at least we know his priority is their contract. It's kind of sad when you think about it. He wants to be divorced this badly, but he still won't actually give his marriage a try? Poor Ramane. Later on, Elena still seems concerned about her condition, though Killian assures her not to think about it. He clearly is still suspicious of his brother's wife and reminds Elena that she might have poisoned herself on purpose. She knows that too, but she still thinks Cedric could have been kinder to her. Maybe then she wouldn't have acted out so much. Killian disagrees. Maybe it's the glasses, but he is very observant and noticed something change between the two of them while they were away. Always ready to stick her nose in other people's business, Elena is determined to find out if there's really more than meets the eye. The next morning, the trio leave the estate together, giving Ramane a chance to finally take a walk in town with Jane. But she doesn't want to spend the afternoon in a cafe somewhere. Our girl has plans. Their first stop is to the bank. After all, if her wealth is all tied to her father or her husband, she's not exactly in safe hands. Unfortunately, the old Ramane wasn't the best at saving money, so it looks like she's going to have to be frugal. But seriously, where did her allowance all go? She doesn't have that many dresses or jewelry. Was she spending it on medical books or something? After the bank, the girls take a walk together where Jane refuses to share her umbrella since she's a maid. But Ramane doesn't care about all that, and besides, the weather is scorching. She doesn't want Jane's pretty little face to get burned. Feeling particularly affectionate towards her maid, she suddenly pulls her inside a jewelry store, determined to buy her something. Aw, is it just me or is anyone else rooting for these two over her and Cedric? I want Jane and Ramane to buy a little cottage together and just be girlies for the rest of their lives. And besides, Jane really does deserve a little treat. She's always been so dedicated to her mistress and never complains, no matter how hard the work gets. She chooses a pretty butterfly brooch for her, telling her to wear it on important occasions. Oh, look at her cute little face! That's it. I'm officially Team Jane. Who cares about Cedric? The real girl-mance is right here. Their next stop is to buy an umbrella. So much for saving money, I guess. She keeps insisting that she needs a lighter umbrella, though I've no idea what for. This must be another one of her schemes. She buys 3 of the latest models, as well as some extra accessories. By the time they leave the boutique, Jane is almost buried in boxes. She expects Ramane to go and visit the perfume workshop next, which apparently she always attends alone. That makes her a little suspicious. Maybe this is where the Villainess has been spending all her money. A worker named Luther greets her as soon as she steps inside, noting that she's a little late this week. Now this guy is definitely in on whatever she's been up to. Have you ever seen a character look so shifty? She tries to greet him casually, though as we already know, our girl isn't the best actress. He leads her to a basement room filled with different vials and shows her a small collection that apparently she ordered. Now, I don't know much about alchemy, but that doesn't look like perfume. For one thing, why are they all bright red? Luther goes on to explain that these perfumes have various effects, like relieving pain and helping you sleep. Which doesn't sound that sus, but apparently, these kind of things are very hard to get a hold of in the Martin Kingdom. Not to mention, they're expensive as heck. So why was Ramane spending so much on medicines like these? And who is the owner who procured them for her? Her curiosity piqued, Ramane demands a list of all the medications she's purchased, all of which amount to nearly 5,000 gold. But if she's been buying that much medicine, where is it? Her secret room only had books, not vials. Either way, this has presented her an opportunity to help the gardener with the skin rash. She asks for a medicine to cure rashes and offers to pay him over the asking price for everything she ordered. In return, she wants the name of Luther's boss, the person who's been procuring these illegal items for her. Luther is very hesitant to tell her, but Ramane drives a hard bargain, and soon he gives in. The man in question is Duke Benz Haribo. Don't laugh at the name. I have a feeling this man is going to be very important later on. The name definitely appeared in the novel, but she can't remember much about him. So Ramane heads home with her insane amount of shopping bags and asks to take dinner in her room that evening, instructing Jane not to let anyone come in for the rest of the day. She's about to open her lovely purchases, but can't shake the feeling she's forgotten something. Well, that's because she has. Though Killian, Elena, and Cedric went out earlier without her, all four of them were invited to an event held by Count Karen. Earlier that morning, Cedric asked his wife to attend, but she wanted to go to town instead and promised to wait for his return at home to keep up appearances. Now they've returned home, but his dutiful wife is nowhere to be seen. Killian kind of makes fun of him, which really touches a nerve with his brother. Though they've never really spoken about his marital problems, there have been several events that he's attended without her, which is why rumblings started about his relationship failing. I think we all know Cedric's character enough to know that he wouldn't cope with humiliation well. As soon as his brother makes a comment, he comes out with another Oscar-worthy line about never showing his true feelings for Ramane and assures them she was keen to meet him earlier today. Though it doesn't seem to have fooled the protagonists, Roberto appears to update him on his wife's condition, after which he hurries off, leaving Elena a little miffed. Is it just me, or do we think she kind of has feelings for him too? I mean, I can kind of understand. Cedric was at one point the most eligible bachelor in the kingdom, a captain of the first-class Imperial Knights, a war hero, and a handsome noble beloved by all. Who wouldn't fall for him? Well, Ramane, apparently, since she broke her promise and shut herself up in her room instead of greeting him. Poor Cedric can't tell if she just forgot or if the old Ramane is back and trying to make a fool of him again. I know he's not exactly been the best husband, but I do kind of feel bad for the guy. The next day, Jane informs him that her mistress is ill. And the next day, and the next day too. Cedric just thinks she's avoiding him, which puts him in a pretty bad mood. He goes extra hard on his knights in training, which seems a little stupid. If he doesn't want rumors to spread, why is he acting like a walking storm cloud? Come on, Cedric, let's put those acting skills to use. He seems especially perplexed about this recent disappearance. After all, Ramane was usually pretty cooperative when there's money on the line. While he is stuck trying to figure out her motivations, he stumbles upon the lady herself in the gardens, trying to attach a mini parasol to the gardener's head. Oh, now it all makes sense. That's why she was looking for lightweight umbrellas. She was trying to make sun protectors. They look kind of silly, but the gardener is just happy she made an effort for his sake. She also brought medicine, but Cedric butts in just as she's giving it to him. Based on the look on his face, Ramane knows better than to argue and follows obediently when he says he wants to talk. Once they're alone, he grabs her by the shoulders and demands she tell him what this is all about. Oh, Cedric, is it really so hard to imagine your wife might actually be a good person? You see, this is why I like Jane better. Let's be honest, he's mainly just upset that she broke her promise and has spent the last few days avoiding him. The truth, of course, is she totally forgot and has been busy trialing her sun-protecting hats to keep the gardener's rash from worsening. While she was working, she couldn't help but think about how sloppy the housekeeping has been in the Roger family. Normally, it would be the Duchess in charge of the health of her servants, but between Rodell and the gardeners, it seems like she's become clumsy, which may suggest that she's passed the role on to Elena for practice. It would be surprising, but not impossible. After all, she's very close to the Roger family. You see, Elena was born to the Gerald family and spent a happy few years during her childhood before her father, Duke Gerald, was killed at war. Her mother died from the shock and heartbreak, leaving Elena all alone at just 10 years old. Her relatives took advantage of her and she lost everything. The only people to show her kindness were Duke and Duchess Roger, friends of her father who took her under their wing and raised her as their own. That's how she ended up getting so close with Killian and why she might be the closest in line to become the next Duchess. Determined to follow the contract and help her husband become the Duke, she wanted to help the mansion staff and be of some use to him. Of course, in doing that, she totally forgot about her promise. She decides to come clean about what she was up to and spins it so that it seems like she did it for his sake to prove that she had the qualities of a duchess. Nice one, Ramone. He can't exactly get mad at that. Can he? Her little trick works and Cedric forgives her. Though apparently they have some other engagement tonight, which she has also totally forgotten about. Someone get this girl a memo pad or something. Jane fills her in, reminding her that once a month the married couple share a bedroom for the sake of appearances. Though, according to the novel, they never did anything and kind of resented the obligation. Even though it's futile, sweet Jane is doing her best to get her pretty and prepped in case there's some fireworks this evening. Meanwhile, the Duchess and Elena are taking a walk through the gardens together. Elena somehow finds a way to work Ramone into the conversation, playing the victim and acting like she's been difficult to get close to. Which is probably true, but it's obvious she's just saying this to gain some sympathy. At just the right moment, they come across the gardener wearing Ramone's hat. He does some great damage control on her reputation, even making the Duchess smile. Phew, that was perfect timing. A little later, the awkward moment has arrived. Cedric is sitting there, ready to be painted like a French girl with his chest exposed and a glass of wine in hand. Is it just me, or does anyone else think he's kind of into this? His wife, on the other hand, is absolutely not. She even brought a book to read in case she got bored. Honestly, is there any hope for these guys? He tells her just to relax, so she decides to have a glass. And another, and another. It's not long before the two of them are kinda lightheaded. And Ramone pops out the question we've all been thinking. Does he regret their marriage? Wow, it only took 3 glasses of wine and suddenly they're opening up? This could get more interesting than we thought, guys. Cedric seems reluctant to answer, which is basically the same as saying yes. Ramone gets upset, pounding on his very attractive chest and telling him to be more honest with his feelings. All this talk about regret and suffering is finally making him realize how hard things must have been for his wife all this time. I mean, she literally moved from another country, was forced into this marriage just like he was, and everyone thinks of her as a traitor's daughter. Wow, it really took him this long to find a little empathy? He asks her if she regrets their marriage, but Ramone is already too drunk to answer. The only thing she regrets is not having enough money to fulfill her promises. Cedric doesn't know it, but she's talking about her past life and all the patients she left behind. He's still trying to figure out what the heck she's saying when she suddenly asks him to move a little closer and takes his chin in her hands. Oh my god, is she really about to kiss him? It looks like drunk Ramone is bold as heck, but she passes out before she can seal the deal, leaving her husband to put her to bed. He's still half nude when she wakes up the next morning and hands her a glass of water. Seriously, am I the only one bothered by this robe thing? If you're not going to tie it properly, then just take it off. After that, she promises only to drink with her husband in future, and later, the two of them get an invite to the birthday party of Duke Haribo's daughter, Lady Lucia. The same Haribo who's been procuring the illegal medicines for her. Apparently, Lucia has long suffered from the same disease that killed her mother, so the Duke gave up his duties and spends all his time taking care of her. That must be why he's so interested in medicines. Killian and Elena can't attend, so Ramone and Cedric are set to go instead, and Ramone promises to deliver Elena's gift to Lucia on her behalf. It soon becomes clear that Cedric doesn't like Duke Haribo, and he even warns his wife to stay away from him at the party. It's the first time they'll be attending a formal party together, so he's also worried about keeping up appearances. In the days leading up to the Haribo party, Cedric's mood becomes increasingly sour. Not just because of the party, he also keeps having dramatic experiences with his wife. Like the other day, when the usual gang were taking a boat on the river together. Ramone, as usual, didn't want to interrupt 3 friends from talking freely amongst themselves, so she tried to get off at the next dock, but her foot slipped on the edge of the boat and instead she went tumbling into the water. Immediately, everyone started to panic. You have to remember that dresses from this time period are crazy heavy. It's like having a ball and chain tied to your waist. Ramone couldn't swim at all, so Cedric jumped in and pulled them both to the surface. That's the spirit! Finally, he's starting to act like a real male lead. It seems like Ramone is starting to trust him more as a result. After nearly drowning, she was obviously frightened and clung to her husband for support. Just one innocent, vulnerable look from Ramone threw Cedric off for a week, And the more he talks to her, the worse it gets. Roberto has been noticing that the young Duke is totally unable to concentrate after any kind of interaction with the lady. The only thing he can do to get his mind off her is head to the training ground and vent his frustrations with some good old swordsmanship practice. See, guys? That's how you know a man's down bad. And can you really blame him? After that drunken night where she was practically seconds away from kissing him, he's been a total wreck. Their relationship is purely contractual, so up until now, he never thought she had saw him like that. But now, he's just not sure. After a week or so of swinging his sword and acting grumpy, the day of the Haribo party finally arrives. As promised, Cedric and Ramone attend together, looking every bit the fairy tale couple they're pretending to be. The Haribo family make their business selling flowers, so the grounds of the estate are absolutely gorgeous when they arrive. Of course, we already know they're not just for show. Behind those blooming bushes, there are also illegal medicinal herbs being funneled into the capital. Cedric and Ramone are announced as they enter a room that is both a greenhouse and a ballroom all at once. From the moment they step inside, the other guests whisper from behind and give them hella side-eye. Because apparently, rich people have nothing better to do than gossip. Ramone is a little thrown off, but her husband is used to it by now. He assures her that the Duke will appear soon with his daughter, and then the festivities will be well underway. Curious, she asks what disease Lady Lucia is suffering from. It's said that her condition isn't visible, but causes her to faint suddenly from time to time. It's been that way ever since she was a child, so every birthday is like the Duke's way of celebrating that she's still alive. It's kinda dark if you think about it. Our resident doctor can't help but consider diagnosis, wondering what might be the cause of Lucia's sickness. Either way, it's not really any of her business. All they're going to do is show their face, give Ailena's gift, and go home. Still, they should put on a good show, right? Even though it was written in their contract, Cedric seems flustered when his wife starts laying on the charm. He manages to play along until they're interrupted by a mysterious woman with green hair who asks to speak to Ramone alone for a moment. Could this lady know something about her interest in illegal drugs? Cedric recognizes her at once and introduces this stranger as Lady Artemisia Lasky. Which is a funny coincidence since Artemisia is the name of an herb that perfectly matches the color of her hair. She insists that the other noble ladies are keen to meet Ramone, since it's her first time at a high society event like this in the Martin Kingdom. Something about the look in her eye makes Ramone a little nervous, but it would be rude to refuse a direct invitation like this. Cedric gives his permission, so she obediently follows Artemisia to a drawing room, where several other ladies are waiting. They seem a little disappointed that she's here instead of Aelina, and immediately start making sly comments about her reputation as a vain and luxurious woman. Artemisia doesn't help much either, backhandedly suggesting that Ramone's behavior is a result of her culture, and they should try to respect it. Yeah, right! This is grade A mean girl behavior! They only brought her here to tear her down! The games really get started when they ask about Cedric, saying how surprised they were to hear the couple would be attending this party together for once. Ramone does her best to stay calm, answering simply that they get along very well. Uh-oh, I think Girlie needs some media training stat! The girls really sink their claws in deep. Somehow, Artemisia even found out about the poisoning incident, which really throws Ramone off guard. What did I tell you guys? She has zero poker face! It reminds her of her past life where her colleagues would always look down on her and excluded her from social events and all the career opportunities that come with them. Once she sees the parallels, Ramone realizes that the girls are completely ganging up on her. But she's not that helpless doctor from her past life anymore. She's married to a powerful man and came from a good enough family herself. She's not going to let anyone look down on her. Not again. Ramone first claps back by saying that her collapse was because of exhaustion and not poison. The girls strike again by suggesting that her husband doesn't like her being at social events in case she starts flirting with other men. Wow, don't they have any shame? But it works out in the end, giving her the perfect angle to twist their words and make it seem like Cedric was too jealous to let her out in public in case other men look at her too long. That's it, bestie. The mean girls are so flustered they literally go speechless for a minute. She even subtly warns them that if her husband found out about them looking down upon her like this, he would burst into a fit of rage. Perfect. Now she's clapped back and given them a warning for next time. Cedric, who is watching from afar, doesn't have a clue what's happening with the girls, but he can tell his wife is holding her own. Edward Wingate, the leader of the Imperial security team, catches his attention straying and asks him what's wrong. Cedric assures him it's nothing, and some pesky little Viscount makes a comment about how he must be uncomfortable at Duke Haribo's residence, since he's known to have disliked him ever since they were in the academy together. Seriously, do people write this stuff down beforehand? What happened to having a normal conversation? Can't they just talk about the weather or something? Luckily, Cedric has a real talent for giving death stares. After one look from him, the Viscount shuts his mouth. Of course, he wasn't totally wrong. As two talented students from important families, Benz Haribo and Cedric Rogers were always destined to be rivals. They managed to avoid too much tension for most of their training, but when they chose the same topic for their thesis, things really got heated. Originally, Ben said he would change his topic, but kept writing the same thesis, hoping to prove that his content was objectively better than Cedric's. Yikes, competitive much? They tried to talk it out after meeting the teacher, and Benz tore him to shreds, saying he had no goals and didn't even deserve to be his rival. Cedric's pride couldn't stand that, so he lashed out and tackled Benz, forcing him to the ground. In the end, Cedric was punished, and the boys' relationship was broken beyond repair. Ever since, they've hated each other. It's a common fact that Cedric avoids him whenever possible, which is partly why his arrival today has stirred up so much interest. When Duke Haribo makes his appearance at last, the very first person he approaches is Ramone, almost like he's trying to get on Cedric's nerves. He hands her a handkerchief that she dropped earlier, but this time, there's something inside. A folded note asks her to meet him on the balcony, which comes as a surprise. As far as we know, Ramone and Benz didn't interact much in the original, so why was he suddenly taking an interest? Is this all just an elaborate ploy to get under his rival's skin? If it is, it's definitely working. While Cedric is panicking, trying to find his wife, she sneaks onto the balcony to find her host waiting with a glass of wine, looking like the great Gatsby himself. He's very pleased that she actually came, and kind of amused that she looks so nervous. But this isn't about any kind of funny business. It turns out Luther conveyed their conversation straight to the Duke, so he decided to meet her in person like she wanted. Well, that was easy. I thought she was going to have to come up with some excuse, but in the end, he came straight to her. Unfortunately, they're already getting a few suspicious looks through the window, so maybe this would be better discussed in private on another occasion. Benz does a good job at keeping up his jovial act and promises to get in touch again another time. Ramone is just stepping out when she bumps into the one man she didn't want to see, her husband. He assumes this is all about him, so Benz corrects him and says he only wanted to talk to Ramone. Cedric is clearly mad, but he won't get into a fight in public and promises they can talk more when they get home. Yeah, I can already tell that's not gonna go well. Fortunately for her, the attention of the entire party is taken when Lady Lucia comes downstairs alongside her father, the previous Duke Haribo. After their appearance, the real party begins, with music and dancing at last. Ramone expects her husband to push her towards the door, but after all the gossip they've endured, he's even more determined to show that they're a perfect couple on and off the dance floor. His wife hasn't had one lesson in ballroom dancing, but he's good at taking the lead and seems to have let go of his anger from just a moment ago. Maybe because he's actually starting to get feelings for her and actually enjoys her company? Come on, it's what we're all thinking. Even Ramone can see it. Something has changed in the way he looks at her. Or maybe that blush is just because she's stepping on his feet so much? In the middle of the dance, Lucia suddenly collapses, her breath coming in short gasps as she falls into her brother's arms. She's not totally passed out and can still speak, but she's clearly in pain and struggling to breathe. You already know what's going to happen, don't you? Dr. Ramone comes to the rescue once again, looking for something she could use instead of a paper bag to slow her breathing. She grabs a gift box and orders Benz to get out of the way, which is pretty bold if you think about it. He's holding her in a position that's making it even harder for her to breathe. But why the heck should he trust some random lady ripping apart his sister's birthday presents? Beats me, but for some reason, he does. He turns Lucia to face Ramone, who encourages her to breathe slow and deep through the wrapping paper bag she just made. The guests watch with bated breath as the young girl slowly returns to normal. It's clear that she was hyperventilating just now, but what caused it is impossible to tell just by looking at her. Ramone suggests she return to her room and remove her corset, which, yeah, if she has an issue with fainting, then why the heck was she wearing one in the first place? These people know absolutely nothing about the human body. Ramone feels a little awkward when she stands up to find half the party staring at her, but Cedric and Benz are quick to give her credit for Lucia's speedy recovery. Although Cedric isn't happy about his arch-nemesis and his wife having another reason to get close, he can't exactly blame her for helping a sickly little girl. Benz heads off with his sister, leaving the nobles to gossip once again about Ramone. At least this time it's because they're impressed. Finally, Cedric suggests they head home, and while in the carriage, he asks how she has such good medical knowledge. Although she has good intentions, he's worried for her and asks her not to act so rashly in future. As you can imagine, Ramone doesn't take that well. I don't think any of us would. But she has less experience in this world than he does. If she continues to rush over and help people in such a public setting, then her reputation would plummet if something went wrong. He doesn't want her to get into trouble, which is actually quite adorable. She even gets him to admit it, and is so shocked by his sincerity that she promises not to be so reckless next time. Oh, great. Now we've moved from cold and awkward to just plain awkward. Will one of these idiots make a move already? As if fate herself was listening, the next second the carriage rolls over a dip in the road and the couple are thrown on top of each other. Not the first time they've been in this situation. Things turn a little more serious when they realize the driver got hurt. That's Ramone's cue, and since there's no one out here to judge, she can actually help without having to worry about her reputation. She leaves Cedric in the carriage like a lost little puppy while she steps out to treat the driver's head wound. Fortunately, the wound looks messy but isn't that serious, and there seems to be no permanent damage to the driver's brain, but he just won't stop bleeding. She tells him to start counting to 300 while she presses down with force, trying to stem the blood flow. I'm not sure that technique is medically approved. Before she gets a chance to apply it, a strange bolt of heat flickers from her hand, making her jump backwards in shock. The next second, it's gone, but she still remembers that strange sensation, like fire forming in her palm. With the application of pressure, the bleeding eventually comes to a stop. The carriage is too broken to use, so they decide to ride the horses back to the manor. Cedric helps her onto a horse, but since it's her first time riding, she's a little nervous. So he jumps on behind her to calm her nerves, and then kicks the horse into full speed, reversing everything he just did. Sometimes I think this guy is hopeless. Despite the adrenaline, Ramone ends up falling asleep on the long ride back to the estate. Her husband doesn't want to wake her, so he carries her bridal style through the gates, which is incredible timing since Elena is there to watch them arrive. I hope this helps her get it through her pretty little head that a man is married, so back off. She sees the blood on her dress and freaks out, but Cedric explains it wasn't hers. Elena insists on getting an explanation, so he tells her about what happened with the carriage and how Ramone treated the driver's head wound. He bids her goodbye to take his wife inside because, the man is strong, but he's literally carrying a grown woman. Somehow, Elena finds a way to take offense to that and starts stressing about how he's been so cold to her lately. Uh-oh. Does anyone else get the feeling she's gonna blow up at some point? Later that night, Ramone wakes up in bed, not totally sure how she got there or why she's in different clothes. She's just about to panic when Jane bursts into the room, saving her the embarrassment of wondering if her husband saw her naked. She tucks her mistress into bed and bids her goodnight, leaving Ramone to wonder about all the ill and ailing people she's come across lately. She remembers that strange feeling when she was treating the driver and can't help but wonder if it has something to do with whatever the original Villainess was doing before she was reincarnated. She doesn't think too much about it and falls asleep peacefully. Meanwhile, Cedric just got word that the carriage driver was found to have no wounds. Other than the blood, there was no sign that he was even injured in the first place. No way. Are you telling me people can have superpowers in this universe? Or is this just exclusive to Ramone? Was it even her who healed him? Oh my gosh, my head is spinning! Cedric asks the doctor to keep his mouth shut, and then orders Roberto to personally deliver an urgent letter to someone mysterious. Despite the stormy look on his face, he's almost back to normal the next morning at breakfast, where he and Elena seem as close as ever. It's starting to bother Ramone that he might still have one-sided feelings for her, because she still hasn't noticed that he started to pay more attention to her. I'm telling you, the both of them are hopeless. Duchess Roger heard about what happened at the party yesterday, and informs Ramone that she's been invited to Lady Lucia's tea party as a thank you. The Duchess seems particularly pleased with her actions, and even says she's proud to call her family. Wow, that's one heck of an L for Elena. The real protagonist manages to cover her disappointment and asks if her present got delivered in the end. Because of her fainting, she couldn't open them one by one, but Ramone promises to ask about it at the tea party. The next day, she takes a trip with Jane, a little nervous to be going to another social event. Jane is carrying the brooch from her mistress in her pocket, and when the lady points it out, she starts gushing about how happy she was to receive it. Like a knight being bestowed a sword for their service. Stop it! She's actually too cute! Ramone is so taken by her that she even offers to call Jane her personal knight in private! Yes! Team Jane Ramone is back on, people! At the Knights training grounds, we discover that the urgent letter was sent to Edward Wingate, the captain of the Royal Guard. He asked them to look into any instances of wounds becoming magically healed, and surprisingly, there's a known case from several decades ago. The incident involves the Myers family, who were wiped from society after being sentenced to death by the king. They were known to have healing powers and frequently used them to help the sick and poor. But they were also incredibly powerful on the battlefield, and it became a power struggle between kingdoms to have as many descendants of the Myers as possible to aid them in battle. So, in the end, the nobles decided they were too powerful, and the king was forced to order their execution due to pressure from other countries. But how do you kill someone who can heal themselves, you ask? It turns out they had one crucial weakness: water. And that's it for today, guys. What did you think? As always, don't forget to like the video and comment for the next part so we know you want more. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications for updates. See you in the next one!